Well, hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Today we will dive into a very exciting topic, the rise of learning operations, a research-based framework for modernizing L&D. Now let's meet today's panel.
Hi, everyone. This is Michael Rochelle, Chief Strategy Officer and Principal Analyst here at the Brennan Hall Group. I'm very excited to have everybody joining us today. We've got an all-star set of group up there. I'm going to let them introduce themselves, starting with Ryan. Hi, Ryan. Good morning.
Hey, Michael. Thanks for having me. Ryan Austin, founder and CEO at Cognota. Been in learning talent development for about 18 years, and we really focus on learning operations, leading that now in the industry and helping companies think through learning operations maturity as well as how to make it easier with technology. And really excited about the research today with Brennan Hall Group. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you, Ryan. Lacee, good morning.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Lacee Cantu, Intake and Design Manager at State Farm. Today's actually my 24-year anniversary at State Farm, but for a little decade or more, that has been in the learning and development area, supporting our large cast of independent contractors.
Well, it's nice to be able to share such an important day for you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Hi, Keith. Good morning.
Good morning and happy anniversary, Lacee. My name is Keith Keating. I'm Chief Learning Development Officer at BDO, also author of Hidden Value and the Trusted Learning Advisor. Excited to be here today. One quick disclaimer. I think Ryan invited me to play the role of Switzerland. So I am neutral in the sense that everything I share will be from an outside perspective. I'm very familiar with Cognota, love the research, love the tools. I'm actually not a customer, so I can provide a different perspective or a lens. So just letting the audience know, I'm not here to sell anything. Neither is Ryan, of course.
Appreciate the unbiased approach that you'll take to add great color to it. Okay, so let's continue.
All right, just want to let you know that this session is eligible for HRCI, SHRM, and ATD professional development credits. Brennan Hall Group is a leading professional development firm serving learning, talent, and HR executives worldwide. For more than 30 years, we have advanced the growth and performance of millions of employees and leaders. Through our cloud-based platform, we deliver evidence-based research, data, and certification programs that empower organizations to achieve excellence in every area of human capital management. Our impact spans more than 10 million employees and executives globally, supported by our comprehensive research library, strategic insights, and prestigious awards program. Below is a sample of our organizations we are proud to partner with. Before we dive deeper into today's topic, I want to share some incredible opportunities that could accelerate your career and expand your network in ways you might not have imagined. If you're doing groundbreaking work in technology or education technology, listen carefully. You have less than 1 week to apply for our Excellence Awards. The deadline for both awards is September 12th. That's next Thursday. These are prestigious recognitions that can transform your professional profile. Now, if you miss those deadlines or your work falls into a different category, don't worry. Our Excellence in Action Awards are still accepting applications until October 17th. You have about 6 more weeks for this one, but don't wait until last minute. Beyond recognition, we also have incredible learning and networking opportunities. Registration is open for our HCM Excellence Conference happening February 9th through 12th, 2026. This is where the top minds in human capital management come together. We also have our BRIC events coming up. October 16th through 17th is our AI Summit, and our Women in Leadership event November 19th. Bottom line, if you qualify for those technology awards, don't let this week slip by. Get your application in before September 12th, and if you're serious about advancing in HCM, secure your spot in our February conference while registration is open. All details and applications are available in a PDF you will receive within 24 hours after the webinar. Brennan Hall Group Institute is a top research and insights institute serving learning, talent, and HR leaders worldwide. For over 3 decades, we've shaped the future of human capital management by providing essential research, certification, and recognition to organizations committed to excellence. We also invite you, as always, to participate in our research studies. Links will be available in your handout, or you can always visit brennanhall.com. Once the results are analyzed, all participants receive a piece of complimentary research and other exclusive benefits. A big thank you to today's webinar sponsor, Cognota. Cognota is where learning and talent operations meet business performance. As the full stack operating system for LearnOps, they help teams align strategy, streamline workflows, and measure ROI faster, smarter, and with greater impacts. We are excited to share that at the end of today's webinar, we will be selecting one lucky raffle winner to win a free Excellence in Action program submission. And we will choose an additional 3 winners to get a chance to win a signed copy of Dr. Keating's new book, Hidden Value. Stay tuned to see if you are the lucky winner. You must be present to win. Now, just a few quick things to note. If you have any questions during the webinar, please use the questions panel on your control bar. We'll be answering them throughout the session. We're also recording today's webinar, and you'll receive an email within 24 hours with a link to the recording and a PDF of the slides. The chat box is open, so feel free to share your thoughts as we go along. Your input makes this more valuable for everyone. Now, I would like to pass things off to Michael.
Okay, thanks, Ivy. Let's dig in. So it's been an interesting time in this area of LearnOps, and we're really excited to have one of the industry leaders here, Ryan and his team at Cognota. They've been doing some groundbreaking research, and we've been kind of collaborating on those findings and trying to get that out because it's really interesting where the state is, and we'll be getting into all aspects of the research, the findings and insights, but also like what does it mean to be part of the LearnOps community? So let's kind of dive in. Now it's interesting. I'm going to kind of switch this over to Ryan to kind of kick it off, but this is the first set of statistics we think are pretty compelling, right, from what your team has learned about where are people in L&D teams, what are L&D leaders prioritizing, and how potentially organizations should be leveraging LearnOps. So the numbers are pretty compelling.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because we hear a lot from the industry about getting a seat at the table. This is something that the industry's been talking about for decades, as you're well aware, Michael, as well. And when you dig into the data, 82% of L&D teams say that they don't have a full seat at the executive table. And recently, we've been going to some CLO roundtables in different cities across the U.S. and some snippets. It's a real emotional topic, actually, when we talk about it. We do some LearnOps workshops for free. We participate in these CLO roundtables. We analyze a lot of this data through the community and through the platform as well. But 82% of teams say they don't have a seat at the table, and we've heard everything. One person in one of the CLO roundtables actually got really emotional and said, we just need to stop talking about this because I don't believe L&D will have a seat at the table, at the executive table. Our CHRO will, but it won't be the learning leader. And the data shows that there are a significant amount of people that do have a seat at the table, and I think it requires a different way of thinking on how to approach that. And I know, Keith, in your book, you have a lot of best practices around becoming a strategic advisor for the business as well.
I think one of the most fundamental shifts is we're focused too much on getting a seat at their table rather than building our own table and then inviting others to sit with us. And what we often forget about is that so much of what we do is contextualized to our organization. For example, everything that I'm sharing today is contextualized to my experience based on the organization in which I'm in. Lacee's going to have a completely different experience. And I think too often we're trying to make these blanket statements about L&D as a whole, but truly it's about your organization. I'm in an amazing organization right now where we've built our table. I meet with the CEO all the time, the CFO, but that's not because of anything I've done. It's because they are open to creating learning cultures and to allowing us to have that space. did not have the same thing at General Motors. I was doing the exact same work, but wasn't winning there. And so a lot of what we struggle with is often outside of our control. But uh, Ryan, spot on in terms of this idea of a table. And again, my philosophy is just we need to build our own table and invite others to come and sit with us.
Let's talk
It-
about some of the challenges that are facing L&D today. So again, I'm going to have Keith kind of pick up where he left off. And how do barriers like this prevent L&D leaders to become strategic advisors to the business? And how should they be looking at it?
Yeah, so I love this data, and again, thank you both for pulling all this through. These are the same struggles that we've been facing, but ultimately it comes back to our story and focusing on the collaboration, closing the alignment gap. And when we have collaboration gaps, resource struggles, that alignment deficit, it keeps us in a reactive mode rather than a proactive mode. We're always chasing something else. And so when we're stuck firefighting, we're reinforcing this perception that we're order takers rather than strategic business partners. Really, this blueprint, what we're seeing right here is I look at this as a blueprint because it's telling us that if we can solve this, we don't just earn that seat, but we do get the ability to build our table and invite the business to come and sit with us. And so at the end of the day, it's ultimately about how do we turn these into value statements so that others can understand the value that we're providing.
And Lacey, just having you weigh in as well, how do these challenge points and resonate with what you've had to address within your organization?
Yeah, thanks, Michael. I think any of us on this call relate to the idea that I like to think of L&D is an art and a science. And many people view the art piece as optional, and we'll just ask you to build us something because we've all taken learning, and so therefore we know learning. Any of us who are in the industry, though, know that it's a science. There is a need to demonstrate organizational value and data. I spent much of my career here at State Farm in a highly data-driven area. So when I exited that and came into the L&D function, I became obsessed with trying to find ways to measure the effectiveness and the value of what we do. Because to some of the comments in the chat, nothing drives me more crazy than when we are just asked to take orders. There is so much more to learning when you let learning professionals dig into a problem and find the right solutions. And being able to find data that supports the solutions that you present is really a game changer.
Yeah, and that's definitely coming up in the chat. Now I'm gonna hold you to kicking off the next slide, which is what is learning operations all about? What does learning ops mean to you when you define it, Lacey?
When I define it, I think about while I lead a learning area that is part of a much bigger organization, and we support a very specific audience for our organization. I like to think of us as a learning department that exists outside of that organization. So let me explain that a little more. I like to tell the folks that work for me, think of us like a vendor. Make sure that when we are speaking to our internal business partners, no matter which area of the organization they're from, we present to them like vendors present to us. So we need to create sales pitches and we need to demonstrate our value. We often need to bring examples of our work forward. We can't just assume that because we're their learning department, they're going to like what we do. So we have to sell that to them. And being a learning ops area means that we also have to deliver proven business results. We have to bring examples of times where our learning has made a difference in the business results. So that's one of the things that we really ground ourselves in when we are consulting our internal business partners, is making sure they understand the depth of value that we can bring to them.
You know, it's an interesting segue for you, Ryan. I was going to ask you what are the benefits of LearnOps for practitioners, and people are already commenting about the idea that they have to show the ROI and they need tools to be able to get there. and be able to tell the story. So what are the real benefits of learning ops for practitioners?
Yeah, LearnOps, although it seems like it's a new term, it's something we're familiar with because of other business functions. And if you go back to things like DevOps and when that was born for software product development teams, it brought together best practices, frameworks, people, processes, and then companies like Atlassian built technology to support all of that. And we saw that play out with RevOps and marketing ops as well, Salesforce and HubSpot being big technology contributors to those whole categories. If we go back to DevOps, like if we think back 15, 20 years, like these teams were pure waterfall and order takers, and they didn't have scrums, they weren't agile. They would just guess, they wouldn't estimate, and they wouldn't think about it like a science and forecast and think like the business around time and money that required to go and build a feature or whatnot. And what these other business functions showed and demonstrate is that there could be calmness to the madness behind the science, and with frameworks and best practices and technology to make things easier, that we can run these business functions, guess what, like a business function, and it becomes easier to do so because we have access to the data. Versus learning and development, we're one of the last functions to reach that level of maturity. So we're going through it right now. And it's amazing to hear the industry really waking up, talking about becoming more of a strategic advisor, really talking about impact and our ROI and how we need to do that. Just 2 years ago, there was huge debates around ROI and impact and, why maybe that's not the best thing for learning and development. There's still debate on it today. But it's just the concept of LearnOps just brings a framework on how to think about this that's familiar, where there's proven playbooks and other business functions that have done this. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're just trying to apply similar concepts to the work that we do as learning and talent professionals.
I love that, Ryan. And I think in our next slide, we can dive right into that framework that you were just
Hey,
talking about.
before we jump on, I want to just share from a different perspective, because I just had a conversation recently where somebody was asking, what does this actually mean? And here's how I explain it to them. Running L&D without LearnOps is like trying to run an airport without air traffic control. Planes are going to take off. Hopefully, they're going to land, hopefully, but there's going to be scattered schedules and no clear priorities, little visibilities. You're going to have a lot of potential issues. To me, LearnOps is that air traffic control. It centralizes our intake, like flight plans. It gives visibility into where every plane is, and it ensures that everything runs within that broader system. And so without it, we're going to consistently risk having delays, wasted efforts, misalignment. With it, we orchestrate smooth operations.
Keith, I'll just add on, that is one of my favorite analogies that I use all the time. The other one that I use is that your learning area is often the intersection of Main Street and First Avenue in a very busy town. Everything eventually drives through your intersection. Now, folks may pull off and park and visit the shops along that intersection, or they may drive straight through. But if you don't have good traffic control, all you're facing is accidents in that busy intersection all the time. The traffic controls are essential to make sure that traffic flows through that intersection seamlessly and you're able to deliver. I'm sure everyone on this call knows, like, we have competing demands all over the place, and being able to do that with the resources you have available is critical to running that intersection seamlessly.
Ryan, take us through the framework.
Yeah, so again, a LearnOps framework is meant to be easy and to align to how people think about things. It's hard because operations is so complex. There's a lot of moving parts. So the point of LearnOps is how do we bring calmness to how we think about this? So alignment really focuses on alignment to two things: your business strategy, which I like to call top-down planning. And, maybe at the beginning of the year, you're putting together your strategy. because your CEO stood on stage or wrote in the public report, these are the 3 or 5 things that we need to invest in to grow the company. And I need everybody to think about these things and build a plan to support these things. So that's the top-down strategy. Now, the reality is in L&D, because we're looking at building workforce capability enablement, we also have to support business partners. And the business partners come to us with a lot of requests. And so I call that bottoms up strategic planning. And to be really good in L&D, you have to master both top down and bottoms up. So the alignment stage of a LearnOps framework helps you to think about that, including your governance and operating models to power that, whether it's, central, decentral, federated, or a new operating model that we're starting to hear about, enablement. Now, planning is, okay, so we know what we need to work on. How do we understand what success looks like for the initiatives that we want to support? And you shouldn't support everything if it doesn't have alignment to impact, right? And how much time and money do we have to actually work on these things? So you shouldn't estimate time and money until you understand what success looks like. To do that, you need to work with the business partners in collaboration. A big mistake we see is people just jumping into execution before you really understand what good looks like, what success looks like, and your business partners agree with you on what success looks like. Then once you understand that, it's easier to understand what you need to solution against and how much time and money you can do to do that. That will help you understand those outcomes. The execution becomes easy once you understand the roadmap on where you're trying to go. And that's when you can use things like task, project management, scheduling to help you execute all the busy work, right? And measurement, a lot of times people get confused about impact, measurement or effectiveness and ROI. ROI is just the math. Did we make money or lose money? Impact is what did we do to contribute towards the business goals and how did we do that? Measurement or effectiveness is it working or is it not working? You really need to understand all 3 things to tell the right stories at the right time. And you can't do that if you're not really good at alignment or if you're not working with the business partners well on planning. Optimizing is making sure that you have all the right data sets to tell the story. A lot of people get lost in data overload. It comes back to strategy. What's the strategy we're executing? What's the data that we need to tell the story on how we're doing around that? So these 5 stages are meant to provide some clarity on how to think about your learning operations with a little more ease.
Not just ease, but running it like a business. That's what this framework provides. And that's where I think a lot of us fall short is we don't think of it as a business. We think of it as a single activity or initiative that we're trying to run or launch. And it's not a side project. And when we have this type of structure, then we earn our credibility.
Too often we are asked to create a solution and then go find a problem for it. To the first 2 pieces of this framework, I insist on 4 things. What problem are you trying to solve? How do you know that it's a problem? For whom is it a problem? And what does it look like if the problem doesn't exist? And we recenter on that consistently because what that allows us to do, Ryan mentioned making sure that your stakeholders are aligned on what we agree that the success looks like. Aligning back to those 4 things all the time reminds them of why they came to you in the first place, why they came to learning for a solution, because they knew in their gut they had a problem, but oftentimes it's getting them to articulate that problem and then provide you how they know the problem exists. And all of that leads to executing this framework so that you can then at the end say to them, we were successfully able to address the problem.
What I like Gary put in the chat that most of us have been in this position where we've tried to do this ourselves without a tool like Cognota. And as I mentioned at the beginning, I'm not a customer, I'm a fan. Just because I'm here speaking doesn't mean that I have this right. I don't have this right. We're struggling constantly with this with being able to measure all aspects of where we are in our operations. So we're all on this journey together, but we have tools available to us like Cognota that make this easier for us. But if you're wondering, do I need a different team to run this? Is this something I'm doing? I think from my journey, I was lucky enough, I would say about 15 years ago, to be in a position where I started doing L&D operations without even knowing that that's what I was doing. And it's just running the ship efficiently, effectively to make sure that we're delivering the best performance that we can. And there's so many different things that we're trying to juggle and measure and spin plates on our head and all of this such. Tools like Cognito help us be more efficient and more effective in that manner.
Let's talk a little bit about the current state. We've been kind of talking about defining, measuring the benefits, but for folks out there, you probably recognize that these are a lot of things that we're facing right now. And it's important to realize that it's okay. It's okay that you have these challenges, you have these process capacity management constraints and alignments, but it's important to realize that the benefits are also always directly attached to the challenges. So this is why we need to do it. This is really stakes our claim into why we need to make this happen, why it's important, and why organizations need to move forward, and why we're lucky to have an organization like Cognota to lean into. Kind of going to join us through the audience approach with the chat and the back and forth. It's been great dialogue, but we want to ask you a direct question now, if we could. Our first poll question, and it's which of these operational pain points is your biggest challenge in L&D? Give you a chance to answer, and then we'll have the panel kind of discuss what the findings are from the audience.
Hey, Michael, while that's happening, someone in the chat has to drop off and they wanted to know if the recording is going to be made available for attendees afterwards.
Always is. Good question.
This is a hard poll question, Michael.
How do you pick just one of these?
Exactly.
Okay.
But it's good in the spirit of prioritization. It's good to try and prioritize which challenge you're facing. Oh, interesting.
I kind of take a little bit of a different approach. I had a feeling that the majority of folks are going to go at measurement and ROI, particularly with the thread that was happening in the chat. You're right. All of them are super difficult pain points, but I'll lead off by just basically saying, based on our research, we see something very similar, that L&D organizations, before anything else, absolutely have to be able to prove impact to the rest of the business. And without proving out that impact, the ROI of the business case, it's really a difficult challenge to be able to get investment in L&D in general, especially in this trying times that we're going through. But what does the rest of the panel think about the results?
I think from an absolutely unbiased, a completely unbiased perspective, there might be a book that recently came out to help actually around this topic. I cannot think of the name of it. Ryan, do you remember the name of it?
It's your book, no?
Oh my God, thank that. Yes, yes, you're right. There is a book called Hidden Value that does focus on ROI, not from the traditional ROI perspective. And I think that's part of our challenge is that for years we've been stuck in just Phillips ROI and Kirkpatrick 4-level, 5-level, however you want to look at it. It's taking the data, which is absolutely necessary, our quantitative data, but it's combining it with the qualitative data to truly create the full story of the impact, the performance improvement, the value that we have. And I think too often our value is hidden. It is there. We have to uncover that value. So check out the book.
This is what it looks like. But we you know, just going back to that point quickly, Michael, because I think it's important. Look, one of the features that Cognota includes in a LearnOps platform is measurement. But there's a lot of steps that people need to mature into to get the measurement piece right. It's hard to move past the level ones, the level twos, if you're not running or thinking about running the L&D function like a business function. And a big part of that is just understanding how to talk about time and money, which is, technically the business language, time, money, and impact. So although that is the priority area, we see that it's one of the last things that actually gets adopted from an implementation perspective, because there's so many, when people start focusing and getting into this and understanding how to run their business functions more towards operational excellence, that starts to become one of the last things that they actually try and implement, because of so many foundational elements that they need to actually overcome first.
Well, that was great commentary there. And what's interesting too, since we're talking about current state, what the priorities are, let's jump into what that LearnOps Maturity Model looks like. Ryan, maybe you can take us through that.
Yeah. So just like a LearnOps framework, we wanted to help the industry think about their own maturity, and this is something that we actually help the industry with, or different organizations with. It's a free service that we provide, so you can reach out. But there's 5 levels. Really, level 1 is no surprise. It's that typical order taking mentality, and it's worse than we talk about it. Everybody is talking about how we need to be more strategic. A significant amount of the industry is still stuck in reactive and managed, and on the cusp of becoming strategic, but not quite there yet. So the work we do with Brandon Hall, we actually benchmark where the industry is, and it's between a level 2 and a level 3. I just saw some new data, Michael. I got to share it with you, on intakes, and getting to the yes is fast. Getting to the no, the SLA times are like 45 to 60 days, which is, basically we're scared to say no, is how I look at it. And there was some debate on a LinkedIn post I made. Well, it's not scared. We want to be performance enablers. Look, my marketing team wants to be a performance enabler, and they tell me no all the time, because as an executive, I always come up with a good idea and go to what I think is a good idea, go to them and say, why don't we do this? And they push back on me and say no all the time. And it's the right thing to do for the business. Strategic is really headed towards what Keith teaches in practices about how do we become a strategic advisor, where people are coming to you asking you for help, and you have an operating system that can support the business alignment and the help that people need. Predictive is starting to go onto that AI journey, more around data and analytics, predictive insights, for example, on capacity forecasting or budget forecasting. You're starting to integrate operations with other business partners like procurement and your CFO office. So although learning and development is often federated or decentralized, the CFO office is often centralized, and they can become your biggest advocates if they just have more transparency into what's working, why are we making learning investments, what are the programs to support the business goals, and how do we get insights easily so that we can partner with you and collaborate on decisions we can make with the business. That's how you get a seat around the table, is make yourself invaluable, as Keith said. And then adaptive is where everybody wants to go and we talk about. But the reality is less than 1% of the L&D industry is adaptive. That means when you have end-to-end AI agents and operators working in your workflows for automation. And if you're working in disparate tools and stacking together things like, spreadsheets and email, or different intake systems and different project management systems, you're going to have data silos, and it's going to be very difficult for you to bridge those silos in order to get to an adaptive state. And the other thing is, there's a lot of AI hype out there, which is great, but if we want to move beyond the AI in our LMS tools and in our authoring tools and in our coaching platforms, and truly get to adaptive operations, you first have to focus on maturing. your operations. Because if you don't focus on maturity, it's going to be garbage in, garbage out. The AI is going to work poorly.
Thanks, Ryan. And let's launch our next poll question, which is actually going to allow you to weigh in as to where you think you land in this maturity level landscape. Okay, let's see what people are thinking.
That aligns with your data, Ryan.
And we did this, I think we did the data probably, even though we're doing this webinar now, we've been working together on this for probably 6 months with Brandon Hall. So I would say that we're just looking at this versus what we initially saw 6 months ago, starting to see the strategic side pick up a little bit, which is a good signal.
Well, we appreciate the input from the audience. Let's get into some industry benchmarks. And I'd like to have happen here is just if each one of you can kind of weigh in on the pillars and where you think you can strengthen positions. I'd like to have Ryan kind of your thoughts on what you're seeing industry wide, where the progression's being made. And then Keith, if you can comment on what you think L&D could do better around these pillars. So let's have just a few minutes of a little bit of a rally point around these areas.
For us, it's a good data point because we get pressure from customers naturally in areas that they would even want us to do better with feature improvements or whatnot. We innovate with the market, and there's a lot of focus right now on our product team to introduce additional capabilities around prioritization, and so we're doing some really cool stuff there with customers. Big focus around how now that we have more structured intake and the right requests going to the right people, the right consultants on the team, the right workflows for that, how do we prioritize, how do we govern, and so I'm a big fan of that one. And naturally a lot of focus again around measurement. We really about having flexibility around measurement, just getting access to telling the right stories, and stories that will work to support somebody's strategy. That whole top-down part that I talked about earlier, your top-down strategy that you go into maybe at the beginning of the year. How do you set up measurement capabilities to support the storytelling aspects of what you need to build to trust and win buy-in from your business partners in other areas of the business?
When I spent time looking at this, I think it's an important data point because this is a mirror to us, and it shows not just where the industry stands, but also where our credibility can either be built or lost. And each pillar is an opportunity for us to prove that we can operate as a business with that same rigor that finance or sales might operate. And I look at this, I think the through line here is value. Whether it's align, plan, execute, measure, optimize, none of that matters if we cannot connect it back to the business and what leaders truly care about. And that comes back to combining data with storytelling. So for me, I think the most important aspect to this is that data point, but the storytelling discipline. And it's not just our ability to be the storytellers, because I don't want to be the only one out there trying to toot our own horn. My philosophy is to get learning ambassadors or learning champions where they're involved and coming along with us in this journey so that they're out there being the storytellers for us. They've got skin in the game. They've got understanding of the value and the impact here. And so ultimately, that gap that we have that this is identifying, it keeps our value hidden. And so that shift is when we combine that operational rigor with the value narrative. That's when we can turn our hidden value into something that's visible, that's tangible, that's impactful.
Lacee?
Gone are the days where you could sit down at the beginning of the year and say, in the next 1, 2 through 5 years, this is what we're going to do. So these benchmarks and this framework really allow L&D departments to embrace forecasting and resource planning with agility, because there is nothing changing faster than everything around us. And so being able to adjust, because you know where you are, you know what capacity you have a prioritization framework and a governance around that, and you know when you have to give and take. That's kind of the planning that we focus on, is ensuring that we know where we can give and take, knowing that we have to give and take throughout the year, because things are just changing so fast. And so the more that you can mark these benchmarks in your organization, the better prepared you are to move with agility, and, to Ryan's earlier point, be able to say no with a but and a why.
Right. Let's talk about some of that business impact. I'd like to share some statistics that we've worked on together. I mean, people oftentimes ask, well, what is the real ROI look like? What are some real use cases? And this is what we've seen from the research. You got many different results. We got some key results on efficiency, which is becoming a really big word in the learning and development vernacular. And what's interesting, I think, is that only 17% currently use dedicated LearnOps platforms. So there's already some results happening. But I'll take the other side of it so that Ryan doesn't have to explain about his organization. This is an award-winning process with Cognota, and the numbers stand for themselves as far as the type of improvements in ROI that can take place. These are not small numbers for any size organization out in the audience. So we strongly encourage you to kind of take a look at that business case of ROI as a reason why to use it. Cognota as a base to this technology transformation that we're looking to see take place. So let's dive into the rise of roles. We haven't really talked about how this is all going to happen. You know, who's going to be responsible for this, what they need to do, how does that fit into the current skills of the L&D organization. So Keith and Lacee, if you can talk about these roles and how they're becoming more vital to ops. And Ryan, I know you've got a lot of thoughts around hybrid roles because of AI trends and what's progressing overall with LearnOps.
I think there's a couple of perspectives to look from. First of all, it depends on the size of your organization. Lacee has a much bigger organization than we have at BDO Canada. So from my perspective, I see this as hybrid for my current team. There are operational capabilities that they should be looking at. I'm right now looking for a director role, and originally I had titled that I want a learning operations director, but it's not resonating yet with the marketplace, at least in terms of Canada. People don't necessarily know what I mean by that. So I'm having to really finagle what I mean. And it's everything that we're talking about here. I want somebody who's focused on all of this and have that be their only job, rather than my earlier statement, which is all of us do a little bit of this. So for me, I see the evolution as this is a role that somebody is focusing on to make sure that we're consistently operating effectively and efficiently.
I agree, Keith. The size of the operation does matter as far as these emerging job titles. But what's really important is the buy-in from your whole organization. If your organization does not view themselves as learning ops professionals, you're going to struggle to reach the credibility and the expertise within your organization that you need to. So everyone really needs to embrace this idea of we're a learning operations area, not just L&D professionals. And it's a real shift in mindset, because it is very data driven, and it is about knowing how much it costs you to operate so that you can be able to measure that with the value you return to the organization.
Okay, so let's talk about what we call AI integration roadmap. And again, these are some of the ways that the research has shown what's going to happen. And this is where I think, Brian, you were nailing it earlier in the phase development as this adaptive operations. Any quick thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think this is real, and this is where the industry can get to. It's going to take time, regardless of all the AI hype and buzz that's out there. Again, because there's a baseline level of maturity that you need to be able to operate on with humans before robots or AI can optimize that on top. And you can go and build AI on top, but if you're operating at a reactive managed state, even, the beginnings of strategic, and you build AI to optimize stuff, there's a lot of maturity that has to happen first in order for you to see the business performance. And how I'll define business performance is there's a lot of pressure on the learning and talent development business function. A lot of CFOs are saying that 30 to 50% of budgets are going to be reduced, and that's not going to come back. And that they expect you to do more with less, and they're looking at how do you adopt AI to help you do that. What they don't understand is that our industry's maturity level is lower than where it needs to be to actually accomplish that at scale. And so we need to get there quickly in order to do what the business wants. And this is a good roadmap on how to think about it. AI counselors are more of that chat layer. Agentic workflows are once you have the workflows working together and there's no data silos, how do you actually have smarter workflows? Operators are when you have these little robots built into the workflows executing tasks alongside with the humans. Autonomous optimization is when AI can actually make recommendations on areas of improvement. Humans in all cases are driving strategy. I don't see that ever changing.
Well, Lacee, we're going to talk about, love to get your quick thoughts on recommended implementation steps. What are your thoughts around that? What's worked well? Where the things get hung up? Maybe just a quick overview on that.
Yeah, to Ryan's point in the previous slide, we've all heard do more with less. I think that is the overwhelming theme, no matter where you are, do more with less. And so how do you do that? The first thing you've got to do is you've got to understand what you do. Having come from an operation that was an EOM environment, very metrics driven, we knew what we did. And then I entered the L&D industry and I thought, wow, no one over here can outline for me, can write on a piece of paper what they do, what the steps of their task are, what their workflow is. So the first step is really just gathering all of that and understanding what you do. What do you do? And how much time does it take you to do? And once you can start to document that and put numbers to it and bodies on it, you can start to see, okay, this is how much it takes us to do things. And you can start to assess that current space. You start to understand where you have gaps, where you have inefficiencies, and you have the ability to then start to gain and build efficiencies and return those KPIs, because now you know how much it costs you to operate.
Right.
And that was really the thing that I'm most obsessed about, is understanding how much it costs us to operate, and how does L&D go from a cost center and move closer to not just a strategic center, but a profit center, right? How do we start to actually return on the investment that our organizations are making on us?
Good points. So let's check in with the audience. Let's launch our next poll and just talk about, what do you think the top priority is? You've heard how everything's rolled out with the panel. What's most important to you?
I'm biased. I know what I would answer in this question. That's
Me
because of what I
too.
lead.
Let's take a look.
I might have a surprise answer.
All right, let's see what the results say. Okay, did we guess right?
No, my bias was last place.
So that was my surprise answer, is building team capability.
Yeah, it's interesting that what's still going strong is holding on to that improving measurement, better tracking of ROIs, KPIs, very strong thread through the audience for the entire session.
Yeah, I think Michael, it's because, if I had to guess, if if we do that, then we can prove ourselves. And I think it's the wrong mindset.
Exactly.
It's about, for me, the highest priority area here is how do you get all of your team to think and act like the business, because we're business professionals.
Right.
And not saying to go back to the last slide, but the last point on the last slide was build the business case. I would drop the word case, build business. You're a business function, you're business professionals. We should be building and contributing to building business or building value, as Keith talks about it. And to do that, there's a mindset shift that needs to happen on the across our teams. We can't think of ourselves like content factories. We have to be proud of who we are as business professionals, building a great business function and building value for the business.
Good points.
That's exactly why I'm biased to the intake answer. It could be because I run an intake team. It's one of the teams I lead as an intake team, and that's really what we have centered ourselves on, right? Is we are a learning ops team, and part of what we do is centering, again, back on those 4 things about around the problem that our business partners want us to solve for them. And then asking ourselves, I expect my team to have a horizontal view of everything happening in our operation and in our organization so that they understand where we can reduce, reuse, and recycle materials, and where we need to build new materials, and where we need to push innovation, and where we need to pull back. And as we say, match effort to impact. Let's not over react to something based on the possible business result from it, and let's match our effort as an L&D department to the impact it's going to have on the organization.
So let's talk about this technological evolution, start to kind of wind down with today's session. So this is our perspective, and Ryan wanted me to weigh in from an analyst perspective. It's a crowded space, and we think that from L&D platform perspective, there has to be some differentiation in terms of LearnOps. And where we see that differentiation is where the platforms lack enabling scale, efficiency, and strategic impact. We can't tell you from our research how much money and time is being poured into the idea of managing, particularly the human resources of L&D, and how time is spent to create a more frictionless opportunity within L&D, to be able to recapture time, to be able to drive efficacy, to be able to have technology be that quantum leap. And this is a brand new area. We're very excited about kind of bringing this category to the attention of folks, as this is the next great place where we can have technology create transformational changes. And so we're strongly behind the idea of Ryan and his team and what they're doing at Cognota. So let's take a look at our last poll question. And this is really, we're just kind of basically asking, how do you currently manage learning operations? And this one might be an area where it'll be interesting to see whether people will really react to kind of a manual process to doing things to partial tool usage. So let's see what people say. Okay, so let's see what the poll gives us. Any surprises here from the panel?
I love a good spreadsheet. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm surprised that almost 50% are using manual processes. The whole world's talking about AI, so that just supports the point of view on how far we are from actually having agentic AI operating workflows.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Ryan. Like our research shows too that a lot of HR processes still are 50% manual in this age, spreadsheets and people.
During COVID, there was a big push towards project management tools because you couldn't do things manually. And it's no surprise that we're seeing that number lower and disconnected systems raise. We run into so many companies that had the assumption that their project management tool was a learning operations platform. And project management is just one component of learning operations, but there's so many other components. So it's no surprise to me where duct tape and IT came in to try and build systems to make learning operations work. And hopefully
Ryan,
over the next few years, we see the last point skyrocket.
quick story. When COVID hit, we left the office. We came back to the office a couple of years later, and our big Kanban board with our sticky notes on it was still there. It just sat there for years unattended. And I thought, wow, we had to quickly operate away from our manual Kanban board. So I can definitely relate to that moment of COVID that sent us away and asked us how we would manage our projects.
So Ryan, I'm going to have you wrap us up here with your call to action slide, the Why Act Now.
Yeah. Sure. So look, the reality is we have to run our business function like a business function. We have to be business people adding business value. The current stat is out of the $370 billion corporate training market, 130 billion is just invested. Instead of spent, I'd like to use the word invested because we should be good stewards of capital as business professionals annually into programs. So this is money that each of us touches. And only 25% of talent or learning leaders actually say that they are confident in how that money is being measured and can tell you if it's effective or not, which is not great. So that means that over 200 out of the $370 billion industry, more than 200 of that is just like in a gray zone. We don't know if it's working or not. And that's a huge problem. So the idea of LearnOps really focuses on how do we run our business function effectively? How do we make it easier? How do we have access to data? How do we partner with the other C-suite offices, particularly the CFO and procurement? If you can do that, you're going to be in a really good place. And I think LearnOps is just the foundation. The next step, phase 2 of this transformation for industry is how does LearnOps, Talent Ops, and HR Ops all work better together to solve business problems.
Any last thoughts, Keith?
It's what I put in chat. If we want to be seen as strategic, we have to act like the other business functions. We need to be systematic, data-driven, and relentlessly focused on value. And I think too often we overlook the operational aspect of what we do.
So let's take a look at who won our raffle because we gotta give away that famous book.
All right, thank you, Michael. Now for exciting announcements, I'm thrilled to share that Brian Bishop has won a complimentary Excellence in Action program submission. Congratulations, Brian. And now our winners of the 3 signed copies of Dr. Keith's new book, Hidden Value, are Emily Kent, Libby Wood, and Sean Grant. Congratulations to all of our winners. We'll be reaching out shortly with more details.
And thanks everyone for joining today. I want to thank Dr. Keith. I want to thank Ryan and Lacey for some great insights. I'm sure it felt like a whirlwind opportunity to go through this. You can see a recast of the broadcast at brandonhall.com webinars and also on Cognota's website as well. We thank everyone for hanging in there. There's great commentary going on in the chat. We appreciate all of that. Thank you all for weighing in. And we'll also, if anyone is interested in seeing the results from the poll questions, please contact us and we can share those poll results. So for us here at Brandon Hall Group and Cognota, thank you all and have a wonderful day.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.